This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agnew.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agnew. Today, I am lucky enough to be joined by Ryan Bouton. He is the co-founder and CEO of Gatsby Chocolate. Ryan, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing, Jay?
I'm good. We were just catching up a little bit before the show. Talked to your brother, founder of Halo Top. You were employee number one. You guys did the Shark Tank thing, which is how we're even connected together. But I really want to talk about Gatsby Chocolate. I want to talk about kind of starting a business and maybe siphoning some people out from a place you used to work and just kind of talk about your experience so far. So where did you grow up, and did that have any impact on you being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I grew up in Virginia. I went to school in DC, and I'd say the greatest impact it had on me being an entrepreneur is originally I wanted to be an actor, actually. That was my goal. My goal was to move to LA and get into TV and film acting, and that alone was very entrepreneurial in terms of, you're hustling, you're trying to get your own name out there, you're trying to build those connections. And so once I kind of made the transition from that career to Halo Top and a more defined entrepreneurial route, I had that background, I had that experience of creating my own schedule and working for myself. And that was really strong for me to rely on in the last 10 years or so that I've been in this business.
Well, you said you grew up in Virginia, and then you mentioned DC. Does that mean you grew up in Northern Virginia, or did you grow up in Virginia? Because I'm from Virginia, and there's definitely a difference.
No way. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm from
yeah.
Virginia. I am from outside of Charlottesville, rural Virginia, a small town of only about 10,000 people called Ruckersville, Virginia.
Okay, all right. I'm from outside Williamsburg, which is probably like similar to where you grew up. Yeah.
Well, Williamsburg was like our big field trip. That was like going to
Yes.
a big city or town. I look forward to it too. It was a great time down there.
Yeah, it's good. It's a lot. It was like the weirdest thing growing up near there. People would be so excited to come. We're like, this is like, it's in our backyard. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it was definitely bigger than where I grew up. So very cool. So tell me the Gatsby Chocolate story. I know you, like I said, you were employee number one at Halo, but like you kind of did your thing there. Where did Gatsby come about? What is it? And who are you guys targeting with this chocolate brand?
Yeah, so Gatsby Chocolate, it's the first ever low-calorie chocolate. There actually is no low-calorie chocolate on the market. And so coming from Halo Top, I looked at the chocolate category and basically recognized that it was positioned exactly like ice cream was right before Halo Top began, in that there was no product that checked off the low calorie box, and even the quote unquote healthier options that are out there, sugar free, etc., not only were high in calories, but the texture is off. It wasn't very sweet. It didn't really deliver on that chocolate indulgent experience. So we figured, hey, we can do the exact same thing to the chocolate category that we did to the ice cream category if we can create a product that meets that chocolate and delivers on that chocolate indulgent experience for the consumer. People will go nuts for it. So that was the genesis of the idea, was sort of recognizing the opportunity in the market and knowing that if we could develop a product or chocolate bar that was low calorie and also tasted amazing, it could really take off.
I read a book recently, God, How Stuff Works or something, and it was talking about chocolate, and like I don't think any like the layman person really understands like the chemistry that goes behind like the processes and all the weird stuff that has to happen to make chocolate taste like it does. Did you have to get really well versed in that whole universe to kind of understand how to make it the way it's made today, but then how to make it in a way that's lower calorie and a little more healthy than the alternative?
Yeah. Yeah, it took us almost 2 full years of R&D before we actually brought the product to market because, and this is one thing I learned too from being in ice cream and in chocolate, it's the fat and the sugar that delivers the consistency. And so once you cut out the fat and the sugar, that consistency is going to be gone, and you have to invent something totally new in the recipe to still deliver on that consistency. So, for ice cream, for example, you cut out the fat and sugar, replace it with other sweeteners, whatever it might be. The ice cream freezes super hard. And, instead of a nice soft texture, it's completely frozen. Same with chocolate. You cut out the fat and sugar, instead of that melt in the mouth sort of texture and consistency you're used to, it gets really chalky, crumbly, etc. So yeah, diving into that has been a huge education, and it took us a long time to get the product to where we believed it was actually ready to introduce to customers. Like I said, almost 2 full years of just working on the recipe.
And what did you learn from the Halo Top Shark Tank kind of experience that you applied to the Gatsby?
So we actually went on Shark Tank with Gatsby Chocolate. We didn't
Oh,
do
Gatsby was
Shark
on.
Tank
Okay, so it
Halo.
wasn't Halo Top. I
Yeah.
thought it was Halo Top the whole time. Okay, all right. So wow. All right.
No.
So
Yeah.
we're
Sorry.
all right, no, no, it's my fault. You're locked in. You're all right. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So we went on Shark Tank this season, actually, last September with Gatsby Chocolate. Um, we learned the reason we spent so much time on the product with Gatsby Chocolate those 2 years in recipe development is because we learned with Halo Top that's sort of how much time it takes to get the product there. So when I joined Halo Top as the first employee in 2012, 2013, it was nowhere near the product that ended up being super successful and taking off around 2017. So that was about 5 years of R&D with us already on shelves, changing the formula constantly, et cetera. So once we got the Gatsby chocolate, we knew we needed to dedicate that time initially before we got on the shelf to make sure the product was there and to avoid having to make all those recipe changes, which, you know, consumers notice that and you got to communicate those to consumers. So having to do that isn't necessarily the best look, even though we are always working on the ingredients and recipe. We knew with Gatsby chocolate, we wanted it to be closer to the final version once it reached shelves compared to what we did with Halo Top.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, if the software world is all about, iteration and constant change and agility and all this other stuff, like how do you deal with like, if you get a bunch of customer feedback that some part of the product is not ideal, is it a big deal to go in and kind of re-engineer some, whether it's the physical packaging or whether it's the product taste or whether it's the texture, whether it's the whatever, like how do you take in this feedback and then know that, you've got enough of it that it represents, something you should change in your product?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a lot of work, right? I wouldn't say it's exciting to hear to be like, oh, we got to go back to the drawing board on the packaging. We got to go back to the drawing board on the formula or the recipe. But for us, it is the most important thing because we want that product to actually deliver the experience to consumers that they want. So a lot of times I feel like the healthier products out there in any of these categories that are better for you, they don't necessarily meet that expectation for the consumer where they're almost feeling like they're punishing themselves for eating healthy. They're eating an inferior product, but I got to eat this because like I got to follow my diet. We want to that's not what we want from Gatsby chocolate. We want people eating it because it's delicious. And then secondarily, it also happens to be low calorie, low sugar. Basically, you taste it, you can't believe that it's actually low calorie. And so if we're
Hmm.
not receiving that feedback from consumers, if we're not getting that response, that's just an alarm to us to get back to work on the product and the recipe and the packaging. And even though, sure, it sucks, you put in all your time and effort, you thought it through for so long, you thought you had it, you get that feedback, and it's like, oh, shucks. But for us, if we're not getting there with the product, we don't have anything to begin with. That's the whole point. So if consumers aren't giving us that response, why are we even doing this? We have to get the product there first. And once we do get that response, and we have gotten there, Gatsby chocolate, especially, the response is phenomenal from people who try it. It's like, okay, that gives us confidence now that we are onto something. That if we're meeting and getting that feedback from consumers, that means we can continue to build on what we have. So it's kind of like a mindset thing. Like I said, it's
Hmm.
not always fun to have to go back to the drawing board and redo it and redo work. But as long as you sort of see the path that you're on and understand your goals, for us, the product, like making sure the product is exceptional, well, that means we got to work on the product until we hear that feedback. If we're not hearing it already, then we got to do some extra work on it and get it there.
I love that. So what tell me about your Shark Tank experience then. You don't have to go through everything, but just what were some of the highlights and what did you kind of take away from it? I mean, I've heard lots of different things. Obviously, I didn't know that you had to create your own set when you went out there, and there's like all sorts of like little things that you don't know about if you don't talk to somebody that's been on the show. But what are some of the highlights for you guys there? And what was, like I said, what was the biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I'd say some of the highlights, again, I might sound like a broken record already, but the sampling of the sharks, being able to have them try the product there in the room and get such a positive response on how incredible it tasted, how the texture was, etc. Even having Mr. Wonderful say nice things about the product. For me, that's just like the triggers in my mind of like, okay, we've got something here with the product if we can get the word out. People really do love it. That was an absolute highlight. Otherwise, it's also just a blast to be able to go in there with something that you've built, that you've grown, that's your baby, to actually be able to present it to people of that magnitude. If you're lucky enough to air, to be able to present it to the audience and the viewership. And that's incredible from a small business perspective. And me, I'm not an influencer. I'm not a famous celebrity. So I don't really have a platform. I can't get the word out there like that to share it with millions of people. So to get an opportunity to actually share something that I built and poured so much into, to finally present that sort of to the audience, honestly, that was by far the biggest highlight and the best, coolest part.
So I'm assuming that you probably have a couple or maybe multiple types of customers, right? You actually have your actual end user customer who like buys this thing off the shelf somewhere, but you also have like, the Walmarts of the world or the distributors that you sell to. Talk to me about how you got your first customer and whatever flavor, no pun intended, that you could kind of share. Who was the first one to actually pay for this chocolate, as a consumer? And then how did you start going after these other places? Are you selling other places? You just selling online? Like how are you trying to move the product?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. We actually do sort of have two different customers if you think about it. So we're sold in retail right now, which means a customer or in theory for Gatsby Chocolate would be Kroger, would be Walmart, would be Safeway. Now, obviously, it's also our job to move the product off the shelves. So that sort of downstream is also our responsibility and our customer too. With Gatsby, the first part of it was actually easy, I will say, because we were coming from Halo Top. So we had a network of retailer relationships for that customer. At Halo Top, it was a different story. That was a huge challenge of us to actually get the retailer as the customer and make those connections, meet those people, and get us on shelves. With Gatsby, that part was easy. And to be honest with you, we thought the next part would be easy too, which was moving it off shelves. We basically thought, hey, if we just throw up this product on the shelves, it's going to fly. And that's where we really underestimated brand awareness and how to reach that consumer and understand that it's our responsibility to reach that consumer and get it off the shelves, because the retailer is not going to do that for you. So our first retail customer with Gatsby was actually Kroger. We kind of did a soft launch with them in 2021 or 2022. But I would say because we underestimated sort of that downstream part of it, who that consumer was that would actually be buying it off the shelves, it really wasn't a very successful launch for us. And we didn't end up having a lot of success with Kroger. And that's one of those examples. We had to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, we got nationwide distribution at Kroger. Every company in the world is supposed to be celebrating and going nuts for that. But it quickly wasn't successful because we didn't have that consumer to actually move it off the shelves. And so we had to do a lot more research and understanding of, hey, how are we going to generate that awareness and reach that person to actually get them to go into the store and buy a bar, because we're not sold online. It's too expensive to sell the chocolate online. And that becomes, a bigger issue. People are busy in their lives. It's really hard, especially with zero brand awareness, to say, hey, take time out of your day to go visit some store and find us on shelves and buy a bar. Sounds simple, but I'm 33 with kids now. And, it would actually take a lot for me to do that. I'm not just going to randomly see like a Facebook ad or something unless it's incredible. So that was sort of our journey with our first consumer, first customer, our retail partner. Our soft launch wasn't quite as successful as we wanted it to be. We went on Shark Tank soon after that launch, and then we launched nationwide with Walmart, and we've had a lot more success there as we sort of tried to reach that consumer on the shelves a lot more.
And what did you guys do? I mean, what was your kind of course correction? Like, what were your actual things you did when you realized the soft launch didn't go the way that you wanted? I mean, you did these other things, obviously, that gives you brand awareness, being on Shark Tank and these other things. But what about the
Sure.
packaging or the product itself? What did you guys change to make it more attractive?
Yep. So we actually did two things. The packaging that we initially launched with is very different from the packaging that you'll see now. The packaging that we initially launched with looked like a Gatsby tuxedo, was black, had the buttons, had the bow tie, etc. We thought it was amazing, and don't get me wrong, I'm proud of it, but it was very masculine, and it didn't necessarily stand out on the shelf in the category either, where it blended right in with all the other chocolate bars.
Hmm.
So we evaluated that, decided, hey, that needed to change. We made it a lot more colorful. We kept the bow tie logo, but we got rid of the tuxedo, the colors, etc., spoke a lot more to the female consumer, and then also stood out a lot more next to the other chocolate bars on the shelf. We also
Hmm.
did do a little bit of a recipe tweak, sort of what I was talking about earlier, to make the chocolate a lot more creamier. And then we changed up our strategy a bit. To be honest, when we initially launched, again, coming from Halo Top, we had gained that brand awareness. So we just thought we put something out there, like people will respond to it. So, you know, we had our website and everything with that Kroger launch, and we had a lot of our digital marketing tactics and ads that we were doing in the later stages of Halo Top. And we realized, well, that's not working, because that was working at Halo Top because we had gained all that brand awareness. But these digital marketing tactics aren't going to work for us until we gain that brand awareness with Gatsby. So that's where we shifted our strategies to focus more on awareness. Obviously, Shark Tank's a massive awareness play, but you can do other things like work with influencers and bigger partnerships. And that sounds, you know, obvious and everyone's doing it and this and that. But again, it's something we did miss and kind of underestimate, was that we need other people getting the word out for us that we exist. Because once that consumer hears about us from a trustworthy source, then they're more willing to go to the store and get us off the shelves. That
Right.
course, what we've learned, us just being that source and our Facebook ad or our Instagram post isn't quite enough. We needed more partners in there who were willing to help us spread the word in that. So all of that combined sort of into a new strategy of the last 6 months or so. And it's been a lot more successful for us.
So what's next? I mean, it sounds like you're honing in on your customer, maybe a little more not female focused, but aware of them as a consumer. Like, are you guys continuing to hone who you're going after? Are you continuing to, try different marketing things, or you just kind of you've made some changes and you're gonna let those bake for a while? Like, what's next for you guys, whether it's, when it comes to client acquisition or, packaging or whatever, like what's next? What's the big thing on the roadmap for you guys?
Yeah, I would say a constant iteration on the marketing front, on the acquisition front, especially in today's age, these social platforms, everything changes so fast that we just kind of almost on a week to week basis are just on top of it, of how to generate that awareness and how to get the word out. If we can establish ourselves at Walmart, we have the production capacity and flavor and product profile to expand extremely quickly. So once retailers see that demand, which would happen from having great success at Walmart, hopefully we can expand, back to the Krogers, back to Safeway, et cetera, and be flying off the shelves there. So that's our main goal. We keep growing with Walmart. We should generate enough success and awareness there to expand to other retailers. And we have the infrastructure set up to do that quickly, which is an important piece because, again, coming from Halo Top, where we did grow rapidly and very fast, we didn't necessarily have the production capacity and supply chain to meet that expansion. With Gatsby, thanks to that experience, we have that all set up. So we're sort of ready for that explosive moment. We're still hustling really hard to create it though.
That's awesome. What are you guys using for any tools with marketing? Like, are you kind of a traditional marketing avenue? Or are you doing things with like anything cutting edge? Or I mean, I don't want to use the word AI and chocolate in the same thing because we're already
Yeah.
saturated with AI and you can't get enough chocolate. So I don't want to ruin how great chocolate is. But what are you guys doing tools wise? Like, is there anything you guys are kind of doing that's different than maybe somebody what you did for Halo that wasn't available then?
Yeah. You know what? To be honest, tools wise, it's almost like what we first tried to do with Kroger is that's where we got really focused, is on all the software and all the tools, digital marketing, et cetera. And I think those funnels work really well, especially if you have that e-commerce arm. We didn't have that e-commerce arm. And so using those tactics, softwares, et cetera, it really wasn't generating much success for us to reach the consumer who was going to go to the store and get us off shelves. So in a weird way, we almost went backwards. We went back to the drawing board. And now instead of using all those tools or outsourcing our marketing work to agencies, et cetera, to do that outreach for us, I'm just doing it myself and my
Mhm.
brother and our other team member. There's only three of us. And we just took everything in house and just said, look, most companies, they don't want, the founder doesn't want to do customer service. He doesn't want to Instagram, or he or she doesn't want to answer Instagram DMs, et cetera. We said, let's differentiate ourselves that way. So if you DM Gatsby Chocolate, you're going to get a response from me. If you email info@dojobrands.com, which is our customer service channel, you're going to get a response from me. If you see our email marketing and send a reply, you're going to get a response from me. And as far as outreach goes and tactics, that's all driven and led by me too. So we do work with a ton of influencers. And that's pretty much our most successful tactic. But all of those relationships, all that communication, the coordination, shipping the product. My brother literally packages boxes in his garage for hours a day and ships those out himself. So yeah, in a weird way, we really kind of went backwards and brought everything back in house, got right back to our roots, I would say, of, you know what, we're back in that garage, like Steve Jobs making Apple just out of someone's garage. And Doug is literally in his garage. So we're not too heavily focused on things like software, et cetera, right now at this moment. Again, if we can grow, I do 100% see the value in there. We're just not quite there as a brand, and sort of admitting that allowed us to conserve not only capital, but allocate our time in a different way that made a bigger impact.
No, I love that. I mean, I think a lot of companies have some success and then, uh, push that work downstream. But it sounds like being laser focused on it may be the mechanism for you guys to break through that
Yeah.
next ceiling. So that's pretty cool, man. Can you share any of the magic with us? How did you guys, obviously you can't tell me your formula, but how did you guys not so good for us with things that are maybe a little better for us when it comes to chocolate?
Yeah, the main thing, like I said, when you want to cut out fat and sugar, it hurts the consistency of the product. So you got to find, if you're going to cut out sugar, right, what's the sweetener going to be? So we use allulose. It's a naturally occurring sweetener. It's found in things like figs and raisins. The most important thing is it has 0 calories. So replacing sugar with something like allulose, that alone is a really popular thing. Now it's not as simple as, okay, now you swap that ingredient and it's good to go. You need to find the right
Right.
ratio and the quote unquote recipe. So that's where the tactics become, or the R&D becomes fun, because whether it's allulose or whatever the sweetener might be, you start to play with those to see, all right, well, we use allulose here, we use stevia here. Let's test the difference in consistency. Same thing with fat. We cut out all the fat in the chocolate by using a different ingredient. It's a new ingredient. Actually, it was approved by the FDA, I think in 2020. So, not a lot of people are using that yet. It's something we were able to get our hands on and spend all that time in R&D sort of iterating on the product. So we cut out a lot of the fat and the sugar. We replaced it with things like allulose, things like stevia, and that really allows us to maintain the taste and texture, but most importantly, all of those ingredients have 0 caloric value. So that's where the massive drop in calories comes from.
How much chocolate did you eat over those 2 years? It had to just be like a ton,
Dude,
right?
I mean, but two, it's ongoing at this point. If I could turn my
Right,
laptop around, you're gonna see a box of bars behind me. I eat one of
right.
those things a day. It's all coming from Halo Top. I went from eating a pint of ice cream a day to a chocolate bar a day. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't complain about that. Those perks of the job.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm gonna have to try this. I have not tried Gatsby yet. I'm gonna have to
I
give it a
know
try.
that one's my fault. I screwed up. I can't believe I didn't get you Gatsby before we're doing this. But don't worry,
That's
I'll ship
fine.
it to you right after.
All right. Then we got a deal. Then I will air this episode. I was gonna not air it, but now they're gonna
There you go.
send chocolate. Wife
Yeah,
and
you're
I.
asking about the tactics. That's it. I bribe people with chocolate. I bribe people with ice cream.
I mean, it's hard to, think that wouldn't work. All right, I got one more question for you, non-business related, just about Ryan, the entrepreneur and dad and just human being. If you could do anything on earth and you knew you wouldn't fail, what would it be?
I would be, we might not get this answer a lot, but I would be on stage doing theater right now. I really would be. Something about that I love. And every time I tell people about that background and then the fact that I'm in chocolate and ice cream and CPG and entrepreneur, they're like, what? That doesn't make any sense at all. But it's the honest answer. And
I've
that's
never gotten that
outside.
answer. You're right. I
No,
haven't gotten that
yeah,
answer
I
before.
wouldn't imagine, but that's outside of what I'm doing. I don't wanna act like I don't love, and I'm not super, super grateful for the job that I do have now. This has been some of the most fun I've ever had in my life as well, but if I had to do something else, and I knew I wouldn't fail, I would be doing theater.
I love that answer very much. I actually had a guy on last week who runs a very successful tech company that like was a hardcore theater actor till he was in college and now he just does tech stuff. So it's like you never really know where it
You
comes,
really
where it
don't.
goes. So like that's cool, man. I love it. All right, if you want to find more about Gatsby Chocolate or even reach out to you, Ryan, other than the customer service channels, how do they do that?
Yeah, go to gatsbychocolate.com. We're at Gatsby Chocolate on our social media channels. My email is ryan@dojobrands.com. Hit me up anytime. I really do reply to everything.
Love it. Well, you're a very cool guy. I love the story. I love the iteration of the product. I think there's some good stuff in here today. So check out Gatsby Chocolate. Check out Ryan. And Ryan, enjoy the rest of your week, brother. It was great talking to you. I'll talk to you again soon. All right.
Likewise. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Ryan.